Okay, one of the things that comes up for me, and it's really relevant to everything, is the word ramifications. Right? So it's a bit of a trick when if we see that we have no self, if we see that that is just a mental construct, then of course there are ramifications to that. You know, if there is no self, I'm tempted to say, then who has control? Right? Because the idea of control is that somebody has control, that is a conscious act that happens, and it includes things like intention and so on. So I see it that when we just focus on no self, it can fall a bit short of what we're trying to do. So for a long time there, how I would describe what I do when I guide is I try to help people to discover the difference between what is actual and what is conceptual. So and the way I put it is that the only thing that is actual to you is your current experiencing, and absolutely everything else is conceptual. And if I can get that message across, if I can get them to discover that that is the case, what is actual and what is not, then of course what is not includes the self. But it doesn't just include the self. It also includes things like control. And things like responsibility and things like intention and things like whatever, you know, there's a whole list of things that fall under the heading of ramifications. But the problem, of course, there, a potential problem, is that people will use logic to control their own behavior. So they'll say, well, exactly what you were saying, Paul, if I have no self, therefore, and that's the key word for me, therefore, there's nobody to control, so I must not have control. But then when you get them to look at it, it still feels like they have control and they're still believing in that.
Right.
So a logical conclusion falls under the heading of everything else, of conceptual. And so logical conclusion is, and we do it, is going to be bypassing. It's going to be using something to get it to arrive at a conclusion that's not really legitimate because it's not what's actually going on.
Agreed. It's up and down. I think that both sides are valid to it, but I do think that the exercises and I think you use them too. The exercises, the hands, and all that kind of stuff. I think they're very effective. I mean, really, people use them a lot more now than they used to, and I see a lot more people in confirmation that really have it more than just the intellectual grasp, and it's a big component of it. I like what I see.
Yeah. Well, that exercise that James talked about, that hand flipping exercise, but you will see two things from that, or probably more than two things, but firstly you'll see there's no I doing it, and then you'll see that there's no control. There's no intention involved.
Yeah.
So you see more than just that there's no self with a lot of those exercises.
Yeah. Hey, lad, I'm sorry I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Say that, like, I have a sense that one of the most important things that makes a difference is the shift of, it's like being within logical thinking to, like, in the just seeing where you see spontaneous emergence, and basically it can be easy to, you see things, we all, I would claim we all paying a little bit, at least a little bit of attention. Like if there is no openness, you know, if there is no perceptual openness, it's like nothing, there's like, I don't think that's the norm, basically. But you can be in this state pretty easily where you are so immersed in the thinking about that even though you're seeing things, it's back in the thinking about immediately. So it's like a big thing becomes, how do you help create a deeper experience of that what's happening is spontaneous emergence. And so, yeah, so one exercise I like is I invite to think of numbers and then notice how do they come, right? So it's just an example. But different things to help us to see spontaneous emergence. And then I think that a challenge is actually that if you're kind of a quick thinker, if the pattern recognizing part of, let's just call it the pattern, if you have strong pattern recognition, you'll see patterns very quickly. Like you'll be back in that mode very quickly, and that can become a challenge. Yeah.
When you say pattern recognition, or you say, the language, I think what I'm taking from what you're saying is that the client is very, very strongly identified with the thoughts and can't really get away from that. Is that kind of what you're pointing to?
Yes, and by thoughts, it means the felt sense of knowing what's, like, it's kind of a felt sense that things are not surprising. Life is not surprising because everything is operating within that kind of felt, kind of, I know it all already. I'm understanding things. I know it all kind of experience.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and in some ways, if you have high level thinking, in some ways, I think it might actually make it easier to stay there because your thinking can easily incorporate experience very quickly in a new pattern that gives you the experience of, like, I just know what's going on. There is nothing surprising or spontaneous to reality. And so in this, yeah. And to
They're in a
me,
comfort zone.
you're in a comfort zone and it's easy to have a sense, like either a sense of self or just, yeah, like for me it feels like the whole the liberation happens in the seeing of spontaneous emergence. It seems like I think that's my felt sense. It's like when you connect to that, when you see and connect to that, what you took to be kind of in a way as some kind of stuck rut, basically, and then you discover that it's the spontaneous quality of it on another level of looking. That's where the freedom opens, is my feeling.
Well, I agree with that spontaneous part. Many people just kind of see it. It's like, oh, it's like an aha moment. And you can read it in the dialogues sometimes. There'll be a particular moment in there, and you can just see the change in there when they kind of shift out into that different perspective that you're talking about. It's always a big clue for me. Back when I used to do the confirmations, I would usually go back and read through everything leading up to the confirmation, because that's where there are a lot of tells starting to come out. And but it might be covered up with doubt or something, but just particular moments in the conversation, they'll say something like, well, I never really looked at that like that, or wow, wow moments, I used to call them. And so, yeah, that spontaneity, that's a big tell for, or it always was for me anyway. And I think several of the other guys used to talk about that too. Just particular moments in the dialogue when something just kind of shifts slightly, and you know something's changed, but you just can't quite put your finger on it. That's interesting. I like your perspective on that.
Vince, what did you mean with who, what?
I was responding to Anne's question, and I didn't quite know what she was asking.
She wants to know about that hand exercise. Where did you get that? From a book or from a website?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. There are in the guide section at LU a whole lot of exercises that people have developed over the years, and that hand flipping exercise is one of them. Yeah.
Right, thanks. I missed that bit, so sounds interesting, but I missed that bit. Thank you.
No worries. Yeah. We can do that. Yeah.
Well, this is a true non-dual group. Everybody's speechless. You know, what do you say? James, I'm still interested in you were a particularly challenging case for Vince, I know. Have you noticed anything like any change, like any what people call deepening? I never cared for that term much. Have you noticed any changes just in the weeks since, you know, you kind of lost a lot of doubts?
You're muted, James.
You're muted.
Yes, lots. One that come to mind as you said that was trying to be in the moment, yeah. And then I sort of tried to focus on how short the moment could be, because I think for me there's two different aspects to it which I never realized before all this. Being in the moment is just okay, you know, I'm in my living room, it's slightly chilly, you know, there's that part of it, you know, just these sort of the sensations. But then I sort of was focusing on language. So we take in a sentence and we have the meaning of that, yeah? That seems a big moment. So if I shorten it down to a word, I can hear a word, yeah? But then, you know, if like say, for instance, the word hello, I can shorten it down to the huh, you know, of hello. And then huh has a beginning and an end to it. So I can shorten it down to that. And I got to the point where the moment was rushing past so fast, it was almost dizzying. So that was one thing that happened, you know, that was, I don't know whether that's a deepening, but I realized I couldn't keep up with the moment. And then that also made me realize that I'm permanently living in the past, you know, by ever how much, but I can never quite catch it when it's actually happening. So everything is that slight lag. So that was one thing that comes to mind. So yeah, I'd have to think about it some more, but yeah, no, there's definitely been, the changes are still occurring.
So that realization that you had there, James, that was a huge one for me, because that was part of the portal that I fell through when I woke up. And so what the ramifications, again, that word ramifications keeps coming up. The ramifications for that is that by the time you become aware of what you're experiencing, it's already finished. So consequently, there is 0 point in wishing it to be different. That's just going to corrupt the next moment. So therefore there is an acceptance, a surrender to that moment. And it's a joyful thing. It's not a resignation. It's not a negative thing. It's a positive thing, because I'm free of all of that shoulds and shouldn'ts and all of the other stuff that comes along. I'm free of all of that. And that's huge. That's where all the suffering is.
I think also you say freedom, and that's an interesting word, because I had one experience where I managed to sort of seem to strip everything away. And it's hard to describe in words, because you end up in a place where there's no labels, you know, no words, not even really sensations. But, you know, people talk about there being this underlying love or compassion. And all I had, for want of better words, was peace and quiet, you know, which was lovely. But I didn't have this sense of, you know, love for the whole universe or whatever it was. So that was interesting as well. That's something that's happening to me at the moment as well. It's great having the peace and quiet, and I don't know whether anything else is going to come from that.
I never had that either. Peace and quiet is with me. I don't characterize it as, I don't characterize love as kind of a positive. I don't really characterize it as a positive, or it's just kind of a neutral background that's just relaxing is just the word I use to describe it. But I hear a lot of people saying that it's like universal love, and that's their experience, and that's fine. But that book Finders, Jeffrey Martin wrote, he's got like 4 or 5 levels that he categorizes it in, and one of the levels is there's that overwhelming. A lot of people describe it as love, but then other people describe it the way just you and I have, is just kind of a peaceful existence. So no, that's not uncommon.
So that's a really important point to appreciate. You know, so it seems to be a bit of a human nature thing for us to compare ourselves to other people. And when we're a seeker and we're looking to see whether or not we've progressed, another shitty word, we compare ourselves. If we want to know what it's like, what we think being awake is about, you know, we compare ourselves to what we imagine other people are experiencing all the time. And so what you guys just pointed out was really, really important. And that is that everybody has their own version of this. There is no, yeah. Yeah, okay. So let's not talk about it. Let's do some work. Who's up for some work?
Me, I am Vince.
Go on.
So where I'm at, I've had some really up and down energy stuff, which has been interesting because I'm really, really tired at the moment. I've slept really badly over the last few nights, which is kind of brought about by this more uppy energy that I have during these probably couple of weeks of my cycle. And it's not entirely unusual for me, although this time's been reasonably intense, of being almost slightly manic with it. So it's quite fun in a lot of ways until you get to this bit and it's a little bit of a crash. But from something Jenny said to me at the first meeting, kind of about how my nervous system is not necessarily mine, or to detach from that feeling that it's me and it's mine. Kind of just trying to let this energy flow a little bit more. I noticed last night it was getting really stuck in my head, and that was keeping me awake. And when I focused more on my body, it could kind of flow out, and then I could get to sleep, although I woke up again several times. And that I've also noticed is the flip side of a coin of fatigue, which is kind of really obvious now, but it didn't seem obvious until after Jenny had mentioned that to me. So that's a kind of elongated version of just letting you know where I'm at right now. But since our last meeting, I've been looking into those questions of my reactions to things, or what gets me going, what gets me back into my head and my little diatribe or my rant. And at the previous meeting, there was something that had happened, and I thought that my reaction was about an aversion to a particular personality trait that I didn't want to have. When I've dug down underneath that a little bit, I've kind of thought it's a little bit about being right, wanting to be right. And then when I've dug under that a little bit, I found it is even perhaps more about control. So all these different scenarios, whatever they are, I've kind of come back down to this idea of that it is potentially control. So anyway, if that's where I'm at, I'd love to be taken anywhere by anyone.
Well, you got a lot of takers there, didn't you? So how about you ask Jenny a specific question?
I'm seeing if I go. Oh, there she is. Hi. So I guess at the moment I'm interested in the really trying to unravel my identification hooks.
Okay, I got something coming up.
Sweet.
Yeah, I usually wait until something comes up. If nothing comes up, there's nothing to say. So there's something coming up. So disidentifying and your hooks, like what I'm hearing is you think that's a thing that you can
Okay.
stop doing, right? And so if you can identify the hooks, you can stop getting hooked, like it's a thing. And really, you're back in time when you do that. So when you're hooked, you be with it. It doesn't really matter where it came from. If it shows up where it came from and you discover something about controlling, that can be helpful if it's not overanalyzed. But you just notice in the moment that you're hooked. That's it. You can't get rid of your hooks like it's a thing. You see how that puts you in time? Controlling again. Let me control these hooks by making them all go away. Like there's something that I can get a hold of in the future. So
I kind of see how it relates to control, but can you speak more about how it relates to time?
yeah, when you're in the moment, you're with what is happening. And the label being hooked, it's useful unless you start thinking it's a thing. right? So basically, you're reacting to something. You might even want to get rid of that hooked word because you've solidified that into this thing. So when you're in the moment and you feel physiology in your body, contraction, anxiousness, whatever shows up, that's all. Don't need to label it. And then you just be with that because that's what's happening in real time. When you go into your head and say, I've been hooked, I need to find my hooks, I need to get rid of my hooks, then you're looking at future hooks and the past hooks that got you and how you don't want to got anymore, and the future hooks, how you got to prepare so you don't get hooked. Do you see how that puts you in time? Don't want to get hooked again, and I'm going to prevent these future hooks. But that's in time, that's in your head. It's not actually happening. What's happening is what's real time in the moment. If there's physiology happening, sensations, then something's affecting, and you be with that in time, and that's it. Do you see the difference? Right now, real time versus in your head trying to avoid and get rid of, and I want to not identify with. You're going to identify until you don't. And you can't run away from those hooks by preparing for them. All you can do is be with whatever shows up in the moment. And you'll notice.
Does it include thinking like, yeah, when there's like a rant or whatever?
Oh, not being able to pay your rent?
In the head. So no,
Yeah,
no, ranting in my head, like having so does being present with what's happening include when it's a thought sequence pattern like that?
Well, a thought sequence is what's happening.
Mm.
And then when you start feeling the consequences of that thought sequence in your body, because you're gonna feel a certain way. It doesn't really matter if the thought created the feeling or the feeling created the thought. It's just unimportant at this point right now. Mm-hmm. So when the thought sequence happens and you'll notice you're feeling a certain way, then you be with that and notice the thoughts that are attached to it. Do you have something right now that you can work with?
Shall I give you an example? Yeah. Okay. So
not an example, but something that's actually happening for you. Like, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling, my body's feeling quite good. I've just had my breakfast that chose me, James. And so feeling quite satisfied with that. I'm still so energetically, I feel a little bit maybe kind of jumpy or.
Okay, then be with, this is perfect. So be with that, because what happens is you try to escape into your head of a future time when you might get triggered. Be with what you're feeling right now. This is what's happening. You see how you try to escape into your head of a future trigger that you can resolve?
Yes.
So what you're feeling right now is what's happening. So just breathe into it. If there's thoughts, there are, you can notice them, and otherwise just breathe into it and be with it, and don't try to change it. That's what's happening. And just relax into it as best as you can. It's the gripping to try to fix it or get away from it that's causing that tension. Just be with it. Sometimes it turns blissful. And sometimes not. Doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's just a sensation that you've labeled uncomfortable. And then the gripping starts.
Yes, thank you. You've given me, I see better now the stuff about time in that context, yeah. So great. I'm just happy to sit with this. If anybody else wants to say anything. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much.
So something you said I found interesting, or your thing about time. The question that I love to ask is this, we call it a moment in time now, but is it really something that's sandwiched between the past and the future? So it's obvious that the past is memories. It exists only as memories. It doesn't have any, we can't bottle it. It has no physical existence. It only exists as memories. And the future only exists as fantasies. And so is now something that's sandwiched in between those two?
Are you asking anyone? Or are you asking
Yes.
me?
Yeah, anybody? No? It's just something to consider.
My experience is that no, it has nothing to do with time. Time's an illusion of the mind.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this now is just a now that's unexplainable, has nothing to do with time. It's not even a segment of time or squeezed between a future and a past.
Mm.
It's totally a different animal.
Yep.
That watches this thing we call time.
So time is just like picking up another fairy story to read. We can read about the gingerbread house or whatever, and we can read about time, and it's only something that we can read about. Well, in terms of our actual experience, it can only happen in our head, in our mind, with thoughts. We can't experience time physically. Can we? Does anybody experience time?
Sometimes when I meditate in the kitchen, there's a clock on the wall and it ticks. And it's tick, 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 tick. All those ticks, it represents this idea of time, every click. But then that goes back to what James, I think, was saying, where it's like, even inside the little, even within the millisecond of that 1 second click, right? Like how small can we slice it? I remember when I first had the glimpse, it was like wow, it's like a big bang, and every moment is up.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And there's nothing that's connected to any other moment. It's just all like continuously, endlessly. I used that when I wrote down that experience. I used that big bang a lot. The big bang of every single whatever eternity in this.
So the ramifications, or one of the ramifications of that realization about time, is when we think about how things will be, how we want them to be, what we're aiming for, why are we here? Why are we here? Is it some fantasy about the future that we're here? We're here to wake up. That's going to happen in the future, because it never happens in the future, does it? So recognizing that time is just a mental construct, there are all sorts of ramifications to that. But we can still go on and behave as if it's a real thing. We can still go to the grocery store to buy food to eat tomorrow. But is that what's actually happening? We can say, oh, I'm buying this food so that I can prepare a meal for tomorrow night. But buying that food, that particular food, is something that happens. And it happens for a whole lot of reasons. It's not as simple as saying it's because I need that for the meal for tomorrow night. It's based on your food preferences to start with, what things you like, things you feel competent to make, things that you think other people in the family might like to eat. There are all sorts of inputs that cause that particular food to be chosen, to be bought. The price of it might affect how willing we are to buy it, and so on. But if we don't think about it, we just go, well, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it because I'm planning for tomorrow. But that's just a story that we make up to cover what's actually going on.
I don't know what this says about the flow of time, but where I am with this at the moment is if I think of a song, in any particular moment, I can only hear one individual note, yet the whole song's in my head at the same time. So somehow time gets lost there for me. I can conceive of the whole and the moment at the same time. So there's obviously a breakdown in what was my traditional concept of the flow of time, because that's not how it actually happens. So I haven't been able to draw any conclusions from that yet, but I know there's something weird going on that maybe it'll make sense one day.
Yeah. And there's other things that will come into it as you consider it too. For example, the movement. Now, and this is conceptual too, of course, the movement from one note to the next note has a particular effect. You know, it's not the notes themselves, but the shift between the two that can, yeah, just to complicate issues. I love throwing spanners in the works. Yeah.
Well, it's lovely you said that, Vince, because I was reading something recently and we say, is something good or bad? Yeah. Just as an example. Well, we never think of the word or in the middle as well. You know, it's the link as well. That's got to be taken into account. That's another concept.
Yeah.
What helped me look at take time apart was first seeing that anything in the past was something made up in my mind. It was an image in my mind that I thought actually happened in some place called the past. And that the future was just an image in my mind that seemed like it was going to happen in something that I called the future. And then my mind made this line from seemingly different events in the past to seemingly future. And then there's the one that watches, that's not even in time. And time is just this imaginary, it's a bunch of imaginations. It's, and the more that I put my attention on that watches the story of time, it becomes so, it's hard to describe. It's like this portal. It's like this portal of isness. And then the birds will sing and the waterfalls will happen and the thoughts of time, you know, but it's this portal of isness that's not even involved in this imagination, this imaginary line with these little images on it. It's hard to describe.
So if you take a memory from yesterday, a memory about yesterday, and a memory about the day before, what seems to happen is there's an experience that comes from comparing the idea that one happened earlier than the other one, or one happened after the other one, or whatever. But there's an experience that happens as a result of that mind play about, you know, so obviously the idea of time is created because we say that one was 2 days ago and that one was yesterday. So we compare them and we get this idea that there's a flow of time. But we have a physical experience. We respond to that as well. You know, it might be subtle. It might not be, depending. I mean, you can, it's not subtle if we're having that about a future comparison. Now we've got a deadline. You know, it can be not so subtle, but nevertheless. So it's this comparison that we do between these things in our head that generates a feeling. And that gives the whole idea. And this is not just with time, this is with everything. It's that feeling that gets generated that validates the idea, that makes it seem like it's real.
Yeah, any thought that's believed is going to have a certain physical feeling that goes with it to have the whole 3D experience of it. Yeah.
I was
time
sharing
being
with-
one of them.
sorry.
Second,
I shared with some of you a few weeks ago that I spent time with my mum who has dementia. And there were times when I would walk in and somebody had just told her that her parents had died, which I wish they didn't, but she would cry as if it had just happened. And with her, the timelines would get very scrunched up and I could see the impact, you know, how traumatic it was. She was crying like she's a baby. She doesn't, you know, her timeline is all like messed up. It's not that linear past,
Mm.
present, future. And I know when I was doing NLP many years ago, I was really into it. And yeah, you could do like hypnotherapy and there would be a timeline and you would literally go like either from the left to the right or the front to the back or the back to the front, but the mind would have it in a structure. And yeah, it's so interesting how thoughts can make something real. Yeah, very cool.
Mm.
And it allows us to function. Like, I don't think I could do my job. Like, I plan things for people. You know, I have to talk about goals. I don't like it's just all very confusing now because I'm like, oh my God, I'm losing my professional identity and how am I going to plan? You know, I have to like get people to talk about their future and their past and blah, blah, blah. And it's like retirement planning, you know?
Mm.
How do you talk about retirement planning if you don't actually care that much about the future? I don't know. I am a bit confused now.
Well, you know, for me, planning is a game that I don't really know is going to happen. So, you know, I have this story that I'm going to retire in a couple of years. I make up 5 years. I make up what it's going to look like. And I make up how I'm going to have my house paid off before that, so I don't have debt. And I make up this story. And then I just like, I mean, I still find this body going through these motions of, you know, playing extra on the principle of the house and all, but I don't attach a lot of meaning to it because there's no real guarantee that any of that's going to go down like that. It's just kind of a game. And I think the attachment in the plan can cause problems because then it's like, oh, it was supposed to happen this way, you know, but it's just a mental game.
Yeah, that's a
Or
big, that attachment's a really big one. Yeah, how much do we believe the inevitability of those things? And we get defensive. So, you know, it's that self coming back in, the illusion of the self becoming active again. We get defensive about our plans and what they mean.
And I've also discovered that there is no security of any kind in form.
Mm.
And so to try to get financial security and believe you're actually going to get something called financial security, there's only what's happening in the moment. There is no such thing as a solid financial security in form.
Mhm.
And security is just kind of what there is when there's no fear of insecurity. Like you were showing me, Vince, that trust, there's no such thing as trust. There's only when there's not that fearful feeling is gone, then there's just the natural. And so there's no security, but when there's no fear of insecurity, then there's just this ease. And kind of like, well, I guess I'll just turn left if that happens. You know, I don't really know what's going to happen.
So I wonder, Cleanne, if it's, this might, sometimes it's appropriate to play in the dream. You know, and with some people, retirement planning might be that's what they're doing. They're playing in the dream, but
Mhm.
that's what's there. That's what's in front of them. That's what's happening. So
Yeah.
it's not illegitimate. Yeah.
No.
It's the
It's not.
attachment that gets tricky.
It's just not taken so seriously by me now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's kind of freeing to
Yeah.
play because I literally have a software where I play and I build scenarios for people.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm literally just playing. This is like,
Maybe this will happen.
the other concept that we get trapped in is the purpose and meaningfulness of work. And, you know, like sometimes I meet people who are close to retiring and they're like, but I don't feel like I've, you know, done anything meaningful. And I think this is another concept that the seeking mind comes to like say you haven't
Yep.
achieved, blah, blah, you know, you might have a lot of money and security and blah, 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 but you haven't, yeah.
Mm.
It's just questioning that, you know, like time. And it's kind of connected to time or the career timeline or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, or what's your purpose? Find your purpose. Oh my God, that thing haunted me for a long time. Like I have a purpose to find. Oh my God.
Well, that's
Mhm.
what society pushes all the time, isn't it? You know, like it's if you go to a psychologist, that's what they'll be doing. They'll be looking for your purpose to give you meaning in life, etc. Yeah, yeah. Now, something came up when you were talking, Jen, that I thought was really relevant and important and a bit difficult to uh, get over, and that is about your thoughts, and that I'll just say it, but we'll talk about it if we need to. But so you experience the fact of a thought, right? That a thought appears, and that is an experience. And it'll vary, of course, depending on how involved or how much you're focused on that having that thought. But the fact that a thought exists means that it has to be about something. Right? So the carrier is the message. In this case, the existence of a thought is only there because of what the thought is about. But you don't experience what the thought is about. You only experience the fact that a thought came into existence. What it is about, you will respond to. So then you've got a physical involvement in the thought. The actual experience of the thought as a thought just appearing is an experience that is so subtle that you probably miss it.
Mm.
But your response to the content of the thought will usually be a bit more significant.
Yeah, well, okay. Sure. Because, yeah, there can be any number of thoughts that come and go and flit around and
Yeah.
whatever that are hardly noticeable. But yes, it's the content of the thought that causes the attachment or often emotional response or whatever,
Yeah.
or the response of thinking more and more and more and more about it.
Well, that's right. The response would be more
or
thoughts.
the
Yeah,
response.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, about the same thing. I was thinking in this conversation about time that I wonder if all of time is hard to talk about, obviously, but that if the past and present, the past and the future actually leak into the present. So with your example about buying some food for tomorrow night's dinner, and whatever happens just happens, and you get whatever food you get, thinking about, or that there has been something about tomorrow night's dinner that has leaked into the present and then becomes itself, whatever that is, whether it's as you planned it or not as you planned it, and your attachment to those plans may or may not cause you any upset or happiness or any response, but that potentially all moments in time exist at the same place. I'm really sorry. The reason I'm saying this is that I am I am one of these people who loves these big concepts, and I was listening to, I can't even remember who it was, but a researcher into the idea of time, and yeah, this idea of it all existing in the one moment, in the present, because those memories that we can't, you know, the only place they exist is in our memory, except that in neuroscience, like, that can't be found. There is no place in the brain where a memory can be located. So the only place that memories exist is in time.
If you like concepts, Jen,
Oh,
then let me
yeah.
throw William James at you. Okay. This thing about, there's two ways of dealing with this from my perspective. This is my story, yeah. The first is, you don't have to worry about any of it. It'll happen.
Right.
So there's that, yeah. But if sometimes we do have to feel as though we need to do things. Now, the William James concept is you don't even have to think about time or memories or anything else. Everything is a model in your head right now. Yeah, right now in your head is a model, and in that model you can think that there's these memories that were the past, and there's these, you know, plans for the future, but it all exists as a model in your head. Yeah. And what you're doing is you're working with the model. Now, whether you think of the model as plasticine or however you want to formulate your model, paper mache or concepts, yeah, but the model is there, and you're working with the model, and you're working with the model now. Yeah. Now, that model may be you going off and thinking, tomorrow I've got to go to work, I've got to make sure my car's okay. But everything is happening in the model in the moment. And that's the only thing that can ever happen. Yeah. Now, then it comes on to, I think, attachments came into this conversation. Yeah. And the trouble is, it's a model. Yeah. It's not reality. It's a model. And the model goes wrong sometimes. Yeah. So if you attach to the model as well, which is also part of the model, yeah, that's where the problems come from. So there you go. Read William James. He'll get you through it.
Thank you, William James. I'll write it down.
Yeah,
Which
it's like
one?
there is no past or future or even present. If you think of present as a moment in time. And if you go into the model, as James eloquently showed, it looks like there's even a present moment that these two connect to, this past and future, but it's all just a model in the head. It's just like this mental thought commentary while what happens just happens. And then there's this mental thought commentary of this model of past, future, and oh, this is this moment, I'm doing that. And then there's this isness that just sees it all, for lack of better words, that's not part of any of it, just sees how, what a satire time is. Yeah.
Can I say something about something that's trying not to think about? On Thursday, I'm having a colonoscopy, and it's not something I mean, it's going to it's going to happen, but I mean, I've had two before. So talking about a model, I've got this sort of model in my head of being on the sort of, being in the room with everything happening and letting down and all that stuff they do to you. And it's very difficult not to well, it has vibrational sort of energetic feeling around it, because I'm thinking it's not happening yet. It's not happened, and it might not happen, and anything could happen. And but there's a sort of vibrational feeling in this body that feels a little bit of apprehension and a little bit of fear. And of course, there is no future, but there is a plan, and it has happened in the past. So I have a memory. At the same time, I have no idea how it's going to be. And or even if it's
Yvonne, let me tell you, as somebody who's had lots and lots and lots of colonoscopies, because I had bowel cancer 25 years ago, I've had so many colonoscopies, I don't know how many. And the most important thing about a colonoscopy is the sandwich they give you after you come out of the anesthetic.
But I have something for real, Yvonne. There's something you're going to imprint on this supposedly past colonoscopy, something imprinted emotionally for you on that. And then it's projected into the future as going to happen that way again. And that's a lot how we create the future. We create it from a projection of the past and the vibrational sensations. And we either want to recreate or avoid this past imprint. So I would say go in and be with those sensations that you're feeling as an imprint in your body to be integrated, rather than projecting it onto something called a colonoscopy.
could you repeat that? So the feelings that I'm getting, this, because once I had one and it was very painful.
Right. So so there's an unintegrated emotional imprint, physical imprint in your system. And so if you just be with that and let all that, whatever shows up of sensation, maybe emotion of fear, whatever shows up, be with that as a separate thing, a happening. That's a happening that's imprinted, and you want to integrate that and be with that and take it off this thing called a colonoscopy, past or future, and just be with that imprint and see what shows up that can be resolved and integrated.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, when you said that, Yvonne, I did remember, out of all of the colonoscopies I did have one that was painful afterwards. And it was a consequence of the doctor not taking the gas back out that they used to expand things. But all of the others, none of the others were at all uncomfortable. Only that one. And it wasn't during the colonoscopy, it was afterwards that I felt some pain. So now I always say to the doctors, you make sure you get rid of all the gas. Well, they generally do anyway. You know, it's just this one that happened to me. So I don't know if that one that you felt as painful was for that reason, but there's something wrong if you're feeling pain. The anesthetic's not working properly or something. You shouldn't.
Well, they don't
feel pain.
I have a very low pain threshold, so.
Me too. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't like pain. Yeah.
I don't like it. No. It's
But also,
just that, yes.
well, the reality, if we're talking about present moments, whatever it is, the reality is you're feeling, was it fear and apprehension? I think the words you used.
It's a sort of vibrational feeling in the body of nervousness, and there's some fear, and I'm telling myself, hang on, it's not happened yet. Hang on, you're right here, right now, and that's all there is.
Well, Yvonne, that's you running away from what you're feeling.
Oh, what, by saying I'm right here, right now? Hello.
Yeah. You're bypassing. Yeah. So you're trying to avoid it. Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you're a bad girl or anything like that. I'm just saying we need to, what we always want to do all the time is come back to what is actually going on.
Yes.
And if you're feeling something unpleasant, if you're feeling that bit of apprehension or whatever it is you're feeling, that's telling you something. To avoid that is not productive. It's not adaptive, or whatever your words you want to use, right? Where the juice is for you is in looking at what you're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't,
I'm also
don't try and avoid it.
At myself, because I thought, oh, it's just a colonoscopy. You know, I'm going to have a heart bypass soon, but well, hopefully soon. So I was thinking, colonoscopy. Well, by comparison, it's nothing. And I'm thinking, I'm annoyed at myself that I thought that I would be okay, but I can see this old stuff coming back. So yeah, I think I'll get into it and feel out this stuff.
Yeah.
And even look at the fact that you're annoyed at yourself for having an experience of what's happening. So
yeah,
there's that's something very telling as well. Wanting yourself to be in a place other than you are in this moment, for lack of a better word. So always wanting yourself to be better, different, anything other than what you're actually experiencing.
Yeah, I thought I'd done work. I thought I'd done plenty of work, and I didn't think I'd be, you know, I'm disappointed in myself. Yeah.
Well, that's another program that there's actually anywhere to get, and that we can actually achieve that place to get.
I know, and I know that as well, but still, it's like, interesting.
Well,
Yeah, so
I
be
love
with
that.
be with that annoyance too, because that's what's happening. The annoyance is another part of what's happening, because the mind thinks it can actually, it's supposed to actually can get somewhere. There's some achievable place to get.
There's so much
even
I thought I'd gone through, but it's
even you thinking you're going through it though, Yvonne. Even you thinking that you're going through it is a thought, because if you really look at that sensation, instead of like, oh, I don't need to feel this. No, it's fine. I don't need to feel that. Go away there. Go away now. That's not logical. That's not logical for me to feel that. Like even that, it's like, oh, this feeling is here, or what is that? Like you were saying, you stick with like, that's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting. What is that? What is that? Like it's not Yvonne feeling that feeling. Somehow here's this feeling. Somehow. That's interesting. What is that feeling? It's not happening to Yvonne, but it's here. It's I sense it, or it's sensed. Huh. What tell me more feeling, like, or just like staying with it instead of making a story up about it.
Yeah.
And that story that you can actually achieve some superior, higher place of never having to feel anything ever again, it's not a real story.
See, now I picked up on the word that Jahida also picked up on, and that was when you said, that's interesting. Right? Now, instead of that just being a little side thing, that is the most important thing that you said. That's an attitude that you contacted briefly for a moment there, where you were going, oh yeah, all right. So curiosity about what's going on. It is interesting. How these things work is very interesting. And if you can just hook into that's interesting attitude, all of a sudden you become open to seeing what's actually going on.
Also,
Also,
Yvonne,
Yvonne,
sorry, I'm not on camera tonight, but I just wanted to say, on a practical level, having had colonoscopies and endoscopies, you can ask for sedation, and you don't know a thing about it, because I was terrified, and they don't like to give you sedation because the NHS want to rush you through. So they'll say, oh, well, it doesn't make you go to sleep and you'll still know what's going on, but you don't. You have an injection, and the next thing you know, you're coming out and you've had the whole job done. You
Oh.
know,
I don't think they do
And
that.
you're hungry, you're asking them for that sandwich.
they don't tell you, but because, you know, I'm terrible with pain. And they try and put you off it, but I always say, no, I have to have this. And I had to be quite firm, but they will give it you. They have to give it you. So, and it's
Well,
only a little injection.
We'll see.
So
I'll
if you don't
see.
want, yeah, if you don't want
I'll
to
take-
test out the fear and things like that, just have sedation.
Mhm.
Why go through it if you don't have to?
Yes. Well, I'll take it. I'll take it moment by moment.
So how you feel the time.
Also, Yvonne, you know that Vince said you weren't he didn't say you were being a bad girl. Yeah. Well, I wonder why you're doing this to yourself, because I've just borrowed the crystal ball you were looking in. And when I had a look in it, your colonoscopy is going to be perfect.
I shall go by that then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I get
That's because you're going to
actually
get sedation.
can I get Vince or someone to help me look at even the thought of like there's a sensation here, like it's here in this location. So if there's no me and I could see that, I kind of saw through that, but then still somehow I'm still like associated with this body.
Mm.
And even maybe this is me trying to understand it too, but maybe some help inquiring about how I'm saying this feeling is here. It's here in this location as opposed to outside by the car out there. Do you know what I'm saying, Jenny?
Oh, totally, totally. It, for one thing is
Because
looking at
even
the,
that is a thought
yeah.
that
So
it's
if you're looking
here
at the
in my belly.
borders, yeah. So you look at the borders of what you think your body is. And so when you, because you're still think you're in a body. So when the awareness is, you feel it in your head or your chest, then you look at the borders of where are the borders of this awareness, and it starts dissolving into there's no body. There's just this, almost like this system of energy that has no borders. And then it is no longer in your belly. In fact, when I find it, look for a sensation, sometimes I have to,
Really concentrate.
it's floating in nothing. The sensation's floating in nothing. But when you go to tell somebody, it's kind of like you have to make up a belly or whatever it is. So I would go for the borders of the body that you believe still exist. Go for the borders of the sensation. And just really experiment with both the sensation of the outside of the push out of it. It seems like it's in a body, and also the contraction of it. It seems like it's in a body, and start playing with those edges. And then also where you think there's a body, and playing with those edges. And as that disappears, then you'll just have sensation floating in nothing.
Yeah, it's easy to do with your eyes closed because you can't see your body.
Well,
So when I close my eyes and I have a thought about where my head is, it's a thought about where my head is. But I don't sense where the border is between the skin right here on my nose and the outside. I don't sense it with my eyes closed. But when I open my eyes,
well, that's the trick of the sight. Same, you know, I have that same issue. Like my eyes still lie to me. So definitely easy. That's why I was closing my eyes while you were talking, because I was experiencing what you were as you were speaking. And definitely when I open my eyes, then form starts I believe the lie. So that just takes time, you know, to just for everything to dissolve.
it takes time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't quite clear what you were asking, Jahida. What is it about that sensation that you're questioning?
I guess I'm just, I'm with Pernell and the six fetter stuff, just looking at that.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah, that puts it in context. Mm.
just playing with, this playing with when I open my eyes and I see there's no seer. It's just the scene. Oh, there's nothing in between what I'm seeing. And a hearness or something, just looking at
Okay.
that.
So I have a slightly different experience than that. So I can see that the seer and the seen are mental fabrications, and that all I'm actually experiencing is seeing. So yeah, so I'm in the middle looking out and seeing nothing there except what I make up in my mind, whereas you're not doing it that way. You're doing it from the here and there. So that fetter is it's interesting how it's written about and so on, what it's described as, and a lot of the traditional Buddhist stuff describe it as I forget what the word is, an obsession with form. It's about your attitude towards form, not about form itself. Yeah.
My attitude toward it, like the meaning I give to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how tightly you hang on to it.
Mm-hmm.
An obsession with form.
Yes.
I think
Well, we're kind of looking at another level of subtlety here. That's
I think I'm obsessed with form. I mean, I love to draw, so I'm obsessed with form.
well, when that was just a shorthand way of saying it. So with let's say with the existence of form. So the obsession is with the existence rather than what it actually is.
Yeah.
6 and 7 are working with the subject-object dichotomy, which is a fiction. It's the breakdown that there's just one thing. There's not a subject. There's not an object. There's just one thing. It's like Vince said, the seer and the seen are the fictions. There's just seeing, which is just one thing. 6 is subject, 7 is object, although I don't see how you can separate them. They're two sides of the same
Yeah,
coin.
agree. Yeah.
But it's you don't need to, it's not a prerequisite, for lack of a better word, for just seeing through the illusion of self. You can see through the illusion of self and still have the illusion that you're located in here behind the eyes and between the ears, and the world of objects is still out there. It's just a different set of beliefs. Has really nothing to do with stream entry, which is 1, 2, and 3. It's fun, but not necessary. Fun stuff.
Yeah, when to put it into context for you, that so when recognizing that self is a mental construct is that's fetter one stuff. If you're looking at the fetter concept of fetters that Buddhists use, some Buddhists use. So fetter one is recognizing that self has no inherent existence, that it's
doesn't
yeah. But what Jahida was talking about is up at Fed at 6. So it's much more subtle level of identification that goes on up there. And so we don't need to worry. You don't need to worry at the moment about that level of subtlety. You'll get there, but you're not there at the moment. So don't worry at this stage about that. It's a bit of a diversion if you do go on up there ahead of time, so to speak.
Do you mean
Go on.
do you mean I'm not being I mean when I meditate, when I come out of it, I have to identify my hands. I go, oh, those are my hands, because I've just merged, and so, and I don't want to come out of it. I'm just so still, and I look, and oh, there's my. I mean, I identify. I see, oh, it's a hand. I mean, I straight away.
So can you see when you identify your hand?
I mean, I mean, it's not that quick. I mean, I just look, and there is something, and then yeah, it's my hand. It doesn't take long.
So can you see that how you bring your hand back into existence as a hand is with your mind? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can see
so
that.
there you are. You're playing with Theta 6 stuff there. You're playing with form and formless. The recognition that you create this with your mind is just brilliant. It's just such a big thing. Yeah.
And you kind of need to identify that. You kind of need to identify that you've got a hand so that you can play the human game. You just don't want to attach to it. Like you be in both places. We're in the world, but not of the world. Like we're both.
Yeah, well put. Yeah.
Well, there's a through the Simply Awake locator, I connected with somebody who lives near me, not so near, in Essex. I'm in London, and he's gone through all the 10 fetters, and he did a 6th fetter exercise. I was a bit lost because, I'm barely past, I'm not even sure I'm past 1, but anyway, there we are. And he said, so I was trying it right now on Zoom, actually. So he said, focus on a person in the room, but keep your peripheral awareness open, and then move from one person, continuing that focus, but just moving your shift to the other person and the other person. And the face comes in, like the mind puts all the details of the face in slowly. It's quite cool. So I've been doing that, and I was in the pub. I went out for dinner to the pub tonight, and I saw there was a little kid on the table sitting and eating her pizza, and her bike was parked next to her table. And I saw the bike, and immediately I felt sensations in the back of my head, and I started building up a story about me and my bike. And it was so fast, wham! I see an object, and there it is, whoosh! It's just fired up. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. This selfing thing is
yeah,
super quick.
It is cool. It's absolutely amazing how it works,
Yeah.
And I think that's such a beautiful attitude, that it's fun to discover selfing rather than I've got to quit selfing so that I can be something bigger than, this whole goal-oriented thing, instead of just, oh, selfing is such a curious thing. Or happening. Yeah.
I wanted to say or ask something. The internet is better, by the way, Vince. Thank you for that offer. I just got, I guess about 10 days ago, my thread at LU got picked up, and so I've been. I feel very wordless, but the seeing through self is very much happening the last couple days, and the I mean, there's a few things. Am I listening to the conversation about the body, and I right now have nausea and belly pain and all of that, and I was discussing that with, I think it's a him. I don't know Algerian names very well, so I keep referring to my guide as a him, but you know, and he was saying that the experience, the knowing, isness, you know, spacious, stillness experience is one thing. I don't know if I'm saying it the way he did, so I might be flubbing it up. But the body, the pain in the body is the pain in the body. It's something separate. But we're also going through that knowing, awareness equals seeing equals thinking equals hearing equals sensation. And so sensation of pain, I mean so-called pain, because that's also a label, is also awareness, and yet it still hurts, you know, like it's uncomfortable, but it's still in the stillness. um so I don't want to like separate the pain out and just say like that's the body. Like I'm in a conversation with him about this now, so you know we haven't completed it yet, but it doesn't feel like the body's a separate thing from the stillness. And yet I would like to not be uncomfortable, you know. So there's, that's the mind coming in saying, I don't like this pain, you know, I don't like to feel nauseous. And then the other part, which is kind of part of this, is that when I describe that I feel so much more absorbed in stillness, like every time I sit still, I just feel so like absorbed. And he said that, which is so beautiful, I love this, is that stillness is being aware of itself. You're not, there's no I to be absorbed in the stillness. So so we're all talking about I feel this and I feel that, and you know, we use that because we have to use that in this human game of communication. But what are we actually referring to when we say that? Is that it's just happening, like consciousness is, or isness, or you know, the million words we can label it with, is just happening. Like thoughts are just happening. Like, why do particular thoughts happen? Why do particular pain happen? You know, like we're just watching it all, and we're not in control of any of it. You know, I had my tears about that the other day when I realized that there's really no one there. There's nothing to stand on, and a feeling of falling, and you know, but I guess this is the mind, but like, what's going on?
Mm.
I guess is,
Yeah, what's going on?
yeah, it's just, it's all happening differently for all of us in a localized perception with a body that's just kind of a medium for experiencing senses. And that's it. There's nothing more going on. Is that right?
I think you explained it great, because we can make up all kinds of stories about what's happening.
But
Yeah.
you're right, and you're wrong at the same time. You know, so that's not all that's happening. There is, but the way. Well, what happens here is it becomes an appreciation of a great mystery. We'll never know what is actually going on. All we know is our experiencing. And that's the only thing that's actual at this point, at this stage. That will change. But at the moment, our experience is the only thing that's actual. And if you're experiencing something that you label pain, and you can extend that into that is uncomfortable, that you also don't want it, that is what's actually happening to you. Now, this is a tricky one. If I say to you, can you imagine all of that discomfort and pain still being there, but you feel okay about it? Can you imagine that scenario?
Yeah, well, I mean, this stillness is so in the forefront, and
Yeah.
somewhere in there is the pain. So
Yeah.
as you know, I mean, being in this environment and listening, everything is just so much more apparent in terms of what's true and still. So in that,
Yeah.
it's even harder to find the pain.
Yes, exactly. Right. So what you're actually talking about is the experience of where your focus happens to fall. If you're focused on what you call the pain, then that experience is one thing. If you're focused on that stillness, the pain thing goes into the background, and something else becomes your main experience. Is that accurate?
That's very helpful. Yeah, very helpful and accurate.
Right. So pain, as I see it, is a message carrier. It's a postman. It's bringing you something. It's a gift that it's bringing you to tell you something. It could be telling you that you need to go to the doctor, that there's something physically wrong. It could be telling you that you've got a story running in there about something else that can't be resolved or isn't being resolved. That pain could be then caused by that, or it could be something else altogether. So the way I see it, pain is not, it's not part of your fundamental nature. It's not, it's the warning light on the dashboard of the car saying you need to do something. That's what pain is. It's not something to be avoided. It's not something to run away from. Certainly it's something that you might not want, but let's not ignore it and want it to just to go away and be focused only on that. I'd be saying, what is this pain? Let's go into the sensation of it. Let's have a look at where it is and what's its character. Is it moving? Is it morphing? Is it sharp? Is it dull? Whatever it is. So that's where the message could be. Do you need to go and see somebody? Do you need to do something?
Mhm.
what's the message? That's how I would look at pain.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the other side of it, which is the discomfort of it. And that's something that you can just ameliorate somewhat by focusing on the stillness.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's hard to find it, and when the stillness is so apparent.
That stillness is an interesting one. I get what you mean by that, or at least I get my version of what I think you mean. But I don't experience it. Stillness is not the right word for what I experience. It's clarity is a better word for me. That stillness is where things are clear. That's not quite right when I say it, but it's kind of alludes to it. There's a not yeah, it's not like I have answers. It's not, but it is like I don't have questions. It's like I don't know how to put it. I say something like this, it sounds a bit stupid. Reality becomes apparent. That's how that's something that comes to mind.
Well, that's a great addition to, I mean, I use the word stillness often because I don't feel like I want to move when I'm experiencing it.
Oh, okay. So literally still, yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I get that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And what you just, I forget how you said it, that reality is clearer, or the clarity of reality, like as I guess you experience it more and more, you maybe get that is reality. So I would love to have it be the reality all the time, because it feels wonderful. But I don't think you can be
You mean to have the stillness all the time? Because is that what you're saying? Because I too would love to have this still when I meditate, and when I come out of it and I'm in that stillness, I would love to be in that stillness all the time. But is that possible?
I think that, one of my expectations to let go of maybe is that is what happens when you see through self or awaken, or, whatever term I've thought that this stillness will that I'll be moving in this stillness, whether I'm still or active.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. My guide asked me to, let go of that because it's an expectation, of course.
Yeah, expectation, yeah.
Yeah.
I found for me wanting stillness all the time, it was because I was running away from the doggone business of feeling. And when I saw this is it, I was not happy because I wasn't seeing butterflies and rainbows. I was seeing through the filter of what I made my life mean, and it wasn't pretty. So then I realized that, then I could start looking at what I was projecting on the world around me, that it was so awful. And feeling was uncomfortable. So what better way to stop feeling would be to arrive at feeling this silence all the time. And it was just for when experience stops having such a bad taste, we won't care if we're in oneness all the time and stillness all the time. We will be, because we won't be resisting the expressions that are happening in the moment.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We're human. This is the bottom line. We're human. We're meat suits, and we're wired in a certain way. And there's hardwiring, and then there's software overlay of the mind. But essentially, we have a range that we operate within, a range of temperature, a range of sound, a range of sight, a range of everything is within a range, and a range of emotion, and a range of feelings, and a range of whatever you can think of. It's all within a range, and we fluctuate from one end of that range to the other all the time. That's our human nature. So to think of anything being always the way it is just another mental, another story.
Another
And
story.
even that it doesn't happen could be a story, because I could be in total stillness at the same time experiencing emotions and feelings and human experience. So they can both happen at the same time. I can get lost in the human experience for a moment and pop back out, or pop back, into realizing that I was lost in the dream, and which is fine. But when it all becomes fine, it's just one delight after the other. Who wants to be just in stillness all the time? And then stillness is there. Not that I have moments of this, not that I'm here all the time, but then there's moments of stillness is there while all this is happening, because I'm not trying to get away from it. And then it's a delight. And then of course I have a day where it's not that. So, but I have glimpses of being it all, being the stillness and the experience. And it's amazing and delightful. And there's no place to get, there's no goal to attain. And it's just, I can't even explain it. And then I get lost in a dream or lost in a, there we go again. So it's just, that's okay. I'm learning that that's okay too. It's all becomes what's happening rather than what should be happening.
Yeah. It just is.
You often hear of a conceptual of a story that it's always there, that stillness, even when we're not aware that it's there, it's always there. So that kind of doesn't really fit for me in a way, because what we experience is where our focus is usually, often. But it's always accessible. That's a better way to put it, I think, rather than to say everything rests on that and it's always there. That's kind of a useful concept. But to say that it's always accessible, if I need to go and experience that stillness, I can do it. But it's not a good idea to do that in order to escape something else.
No.
Yeah, in my experience, it's just there. It doesn't feel like an escape. It's just there when it's there, and I enjoy it when it's there. There's so many people that have described their awakening and like clearly know that I had an awakening or the awakening happened, and I guess, but for others, it's just this gradual
Yeah.
thing where it kind of, and I guess for me, it's been much more gradual.
Yeah. Yeah. Even in Buddhism, they say there's the path of sudden awakening and the path of gradual awakening. That they've recognized for thousands of years that it could be either way. We tend to, what I come across a lot is people having expectations that it's got to be a sudden thing. It's got to be bells and whistles and happen with a great epiphany. Well, my experience is that's not the case. It can
And
be
I
either
think
way.
also a lot of doubt comes because when it comes in, for me, it was like, it was so obvious that that's me all along. And it's like, then it's like, no, it can't be that simple. It just can't, and then the doubt, like, this can't be it. This is just too obvious. This is.
Well, it just the other day when I really couldn't find the self, in this question that he asked, and I found that I just kept looking. What do you mean it's not there? How could that be so? How could it just have, like, it must be there somewhere? And then I realized that was the sneaky mind, ego kind of sneaking in there, pretending it was the one looking. And that I just had to stop, like, no, it's not there, and that's enough. I don't just stay there and not keep looking. What's the point?
Well,
Like
that's
that.
what I use an analogy often. I say, you're looking for pick something, anything you like in the fridge. You open the fridge door and you're looking for anything, and it's not there in the fridge. So you shut the door and you go away. How many times do you go back and open the fridge door and check that it's really not there? You don't. You might do it once, but you don't keep doing it.
Right.
Well, if once you see that there's no self there, what's the point of going back and looking again and again and again to see that there's no self there? You know what the outcome is going to be when you start looking.
Right.
So why bother to do it? Don't do it. But here's the big one, the ramifications of that. If there is no self there, then a whole lot of other things also fall away. There's nobody controlling issues. That's a really, really big one, right? There's nobody making decisions. There's nobody having intentions. Right? All of these things fall away when the self falls away, because it takes a self for those things to have existence.
And then there was, who is the one looking that isn't finding? Like,
Yes.
it was that one. And when I went to see who that one was, there was just spacious. It's like that one is just spaciousness, and
Yeah.
and there's still nothing.
So I use an exercise, one of the few exercises I do use when I'm guiding, which is to use it to get hold of a cup and look at that, and when you look at it with an intense focus and get past the labels of its color, get past the labels of its shape or its usefulness, when you're no longer in concept land about the fact that it's got a purpose, this cup to drink out of or whatever, when you can look at it and you see the complexity of what you're looking at, that you see that the color isn't just white, it's a whole range of colors. When you see that the texture of the surface isn't just smooth, it's actually got a whole lot of dimples in it, because you're looking at it at really intensely. When you're involved in it at that level, in order to, how can I put it? If you ask who's seeing it or what is being seen, you have to stop seeing in order to conjure up somebody that's doing the seeing or something that's been seen, because all that actually exists is the seeing of it, the seeing, not of it, the seeing. The seeing is what you're experiencing, just seeing. And here's a twist. That is what you are at that moment. You are just the seeing. And even using the word "the" in front of seeing is wrong, but it's, I don't know a better way to put it. So a seer or a seen can only exist mentally.
It's just what's being seen.
It's, you know, it's just the act of seeing. It's the verb, not the noun.
Seeing is happening.
Seeing is
That's all.
happening. Yes, seeing is happening. And of course, that's not a static thing. That's a flow.
Yeah. Sorry, there's some motor going outside. I don't know if you can hear it, but yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you.
Can I ask you something, Vince?
Sure.
When it's not, well, it's not to do with seeing, it's more to do with there being no self. When I know I've mentioned it before, but when that me or the self dropped out of me, and I had this it was just shocking and just unbelievable. And I thought, oh, this has gone too far. I didn't plan for this. I mean, it was just so shocking. There was nothing there at all, and it all dropped out. Then it seemed to come back, the me. Well, does that mean because it's dropped out? I mean, I now know there is no me or self, but is it meant to happen? I mean, I don't, did it come back, or once it's gone? I mean, it felt like it came back because it was so terrifying.
Yeah, I get what you're asking. Yeah. Now look, you didn't lose anything.
No, I know. Yeah,
What you recognized was what was always the case.
it was never there.
It was
Yeah.
never there. That's right. So it's not like you lose a self, but what happens, of course, is that you're operating from a different place without that. Now, this idea of it coming back, yeah, it's very real, you know, but what comes back isn't a self. What comes back is a sense of a self, right? And it's quite legitimate to operate from that place under certain circumstances. But you know, it's like you're up on the stage and you're an actor, right?
Yes.
When you're at the grocery store buying food or whatever, right? You've got to behave as if there's a self. You know,
Yes.
I will get my money out of my purse and give it to that person. You know, that's appropriate. But you don't, you know, with the slightest bit of contemplation, you know that is just an act. It's the way you have to be in order to operate in society. It doesn't mean that there's really.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, yeah.
Go on.
Well, why was it so? Well, I can understand why it was so devastating. It was devastating. Is it devastating for most people? To some people, does it drop out and it's not devastating? I mean, for me, it was totally devastating.
Mm-hmm.
because I also realized that my children and their children, there were no selves, they hadn't got any me's either. There was nowhere, no one. And it was like heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking.
Right. Okay.
And so, I mean, I still can't get over it, how heartbreaking it was. So therefore, I think I had to get back to normality, or what's normal.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Well, that might be a way of avoiding the heartbreaking thing. Yeah. So again, it's like Rosie's pain. That heartbreak is a messenger for you. It's telling you something, and this is where a guide would be always valuable for you, because for you to look yourself when you're feeling that heartbreak, it's quite difficult, because that's taking your attention. So a guide can help you be a bit objective about that and go, what's the message that the heartbreak is bringing you? And I'd say it's something along the lines of that you've got a story running that you're believing. And that's why it's heartbreaking. So for most people, it's liberating. It's not heartbreaking at all. It's quite liberating.
There was too much invested, do you think? That's why it was so hard?
No, I'd say the story you had running was something about loss. There's something about grief involved in it. But I mean, I'm only guessing that. I don't know unless we went and looked at it.
Well, it was like a loss.
Yeah. See, for me, it was a gain, not a loss.
Well,
I was so glad to be rid of that self, because it was incompetent.
Yeah. I realize it's a gain. I mean, I know it's a gain, and there's nothing lost.
That's only your head telling you that.
It felt like it. So I'm sorry to go on about it. It's just
Don't be sorry. Don't need to be sorry.
I find that very curiouser and curiouser.
Yeah, good one. That's a good attitude to have. Yeah, except I don't believe you're really curious yet. Yeah. So I'd say, we need to look at that a bit deeper and go into that one. That's a good opening there for that.
Yeah, what happens when you just feel that heartbreak?
Because when I talk about it, I can feel it still. I still feel that heartbreak. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I can still feel the devastation of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent to be with it like that. That was great, because you'd go in your head, I should know better. I know this isn't real. And then you bypass. I shouldn't be upset about my colonoscopy. I shouldn't be upset about, my family dropping away. I shouldn't feel these feelings. If you see how you probably do that a lot, that's probably a big pattern.
Yes. I mean, I just don't want to. I brought it up because I've been bringing it up every so often, but I've not really investigated into that heartbreaking feeling.
Yeah. Feeling what's feeling rather than making up that you shouldn't be feeling anything.
Well, and also like maybe not, don't interrogate that feeling.
No.
Just allow it and feel it. And
Yes.
Yes, it's important to appreciate that wanting to end that feeling is just another diversion.
Yeah.
and it's a tactic that probably won't work either.
No.
So
So that's
I would
interesting. That's
suggest that, yeah, it is interesting. I would suggest that you look for a story about loss.
oh,
Just see what's there about that.
oh, yeah. A story from the past about loss.
No. Although that might be something that's associated with it, but no, a story very much in the present about loss, a story that you're not allowing yourself to notice.
When you saw through self and you saw that even your children have no self and you felt that loss, go there,
Yes.
go there. And sometimes talking about it helps you go there because you
Yeah.
try to bypass it so much. Yeah. No children. My children have no self. There's no selves anywhere.
There's no
And
self nowhere.
feel that devastation and just be with it. You don't even have to understand it.
No,
Just be,
it's totally devastating.
yeah, be with that. Be with whatever shows up with it. And when you catch your thoughts saying, oh, I shouldn't be sobbing, I shouldn't be hurting, just watch them because they're BSing you. You are what you are. You're feeling what you're feeling. Be with that.
You have to get friendly with that feeling of devastation in order to hear what it's telling you.
Oh, it feels like it's huge. Like a huge black hole.
So what are the consequences for your children if they don't know that they've got no self?
Well, they're wasting time. I mean, time doesn't exist either, I know. But they're
Okay.
what
I get what you're
Well,
saying.
that's what they're chasing. They're chasing something. I'm not chasing anymore. I'm not. There's nothing to chase. There's nothing to become. There's nothing to be. But they're all chasing it. And I thought that there was something there before, but I can't tell them. I can't. So I have to watch them. I have to watch them chasing it, and my grandchildren being taught to chase this thing.
So is that associated with the feeling of devastation?
Yeah.
So it's their how could you
Well,
put it?
well, why are they? It's such a waste of time. I mean,
Okay.
time doesn't exist, but
Yeah. So they're missing out on
That's beautiful.
something that you
yeah,
appreciate, and that
Well,
hurts
and
you to see them missing out on that.
I can't even share it because
No, you can't. We know that. Yeah.
It's like
But
they're chasing their tail and it's so futile and there's nothing you can do to help them.
no,
And it's heartbreaking.
it is heartbreaking, completely heartbreaking.
Yeah, be with that. You can't help them. The belief that you're supposed to be helping them and that you can't.
Well, they look at my life and they see it looks like a mess to them,
Mhm.
and yeah, I can be in a mess. It's fine. I can be in stillness in a mess. What looks like a mess to them, but yeah, I can't.
Is there a
Are there on-
story that you're supposed to help them?
Do I know of a story?
Is there a story? Do you have a story? Is there a story there that you're supposed to be somehow their guiding light, their helper, their savior, their rescuer, their guide, you know, the one who keeps them from skinning their knee?
I can't, can I? I don't know. I just have to love, don't I? That's all there is. There's just to feel the love.
Can you see that that's you trying to escape this feeling of devastation?
Well,
Oh, is it?
kind of. Well, no, you're kind of, I'm sensing that you're both. You're getting an insight. You're getting an insight, but you're still feeling, because I can sense that you're still feeling it. Keep feeling the devastation while those insights come. And look at the stories that you're making up about it. I'm supposed to help them.
Yeah.
How are they going to make it? They're not supposed to skin their knee. How can I make it better? Whatever stories, I'm making these up. I don't know if they're your stories.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm. There's
Don't
nothing I can.
No, yeah, no, don't negate your stories, because Vince was also right on a certain point. You'll tend to start to get an insight and pull yourself out of the feeling. You might get an insight of love, but there's still some residue of sorrow that's there. And there's still
Yeah.
some broken heart there. You don't want to escape that once you start getting insight. Let the insights come while you smell every tiny little fragrance of that sorrow.
I'm not sure where I'm going, but
You're not going anywhere.
oh,
That's the trick. You're not going anywhere. You're being with. Don't try to drag it around by the nose.
if I go into the sorrow, I mean, I'll be in sorrow forever, I think. Oh, I don't know. There's so much of it.
It feels that way. It feels that way. So you be with it. And then if you find the body getting up out of distraction and doing something else, don't judge that. That's just what it's doing. If the mind pulls you out in distraction, don't worry about it. That's okay. It'll come back. You'll be back here again. You don't have to worry about trying, finding the mind or the body getting out of it for a little while, finding something to eat, finding a nap, finding something to think about. It's okay, because it'll come back. It'll keep coming back until you're complete.
Thank you, all of you, for letting me do that, because I knew there was something in there, and I knew I had to try and get there.
Yeah. And now you know how to access it. You can take a break and then you can come access it again later. Like, you don't need to horsewhip yourself. You don't need to pull yourself around or pull your emotions around to where they need to be, or what you should be sitting and doing, and all these shoulds. Just allow time, and there's nowhere to get.
I mean, do you think just being human is so much sorrow?
There's just sorrow in the moment, so it feels like the whole thing is encompassed in sorrow. But because that's, you're experiencing sorrow right now in this moment. And when this is integrated, you won't feel like human is sorrow anymore. But you want to go and experience this whole thing, and it feels like it's endless and it's huge and it's all encompassing. And humanity is nothing but sorrow. And you feel it all. You feel all that sorrow of all of your perceptions of humanity. It's so deep and so big, it feels like it'll never end. But trust me, it will. There is another side. You just keep being with it.
I don't mind. I don't
Yeah.
mind it.
Yeah, it feels kind of good, like cleansing a little, right?
I don't mind it at all. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, see, it's already shifting. Ah, yeah, you see?
It's sadness without the stories that turn it into grief, just pure sadness. It has a really beautiful, a really sweet flavor to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the sorrow must meet, it must, I mean, I think it's love and sorrow.
Mm.
I'm going ahead here, but yeah.
Well, yes, and love that has a short wire in it feels like sorrow. It's okay. It's like this mixed, it's almost like you're on two different sides of the polarity of the duality, and you're experiencing both at the same time. And you just let them merge and marry. Let them splash into each other until everything is one again.
It's strange how it helps one breathe as well, the breath.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you all for letting me come here.
It's a beautiful gift for us as well. It's such a beautiful gift for us to share in this. Oh, beauty.
Thank you.
How are you traveling, Don?
I don't know now. I was I had two things I was going to say. I wasn't sure which one I would. I'll tell you both things just very quickly, I guess. I was there was one thing that happened twice today, which I thought was amusing, you could say. I was putting some grass. I had cut the grass, putting a bag of grass in the back of the car, and a bit heavy of shoving it in. And the thought, I'm never going to get this done, repeatedly, and intense frustration. And like while I was watching myself pushing it into the car, and it was getting in there, and it took about 4 shoves, and it was in. But the thought, I'm never going to get this done, was repeating itself, and the feeling of frustration responding to believing that thought was happening while I was observing it getting done. And I'm like, what? I had all the evidence that it was happening, and the belief in the thought that it wasn't happening was more powerful than watching it happening and feeling it. And then later on, I was doing my cordon bleu meal. You know, I was chicken whatever from the supermarket. I heated it up, and I was scraping the rice onto the bowl. And the same thought, I'm never going to get this rice onto the plate. While I was watching myself scrape, and it took about 6 spoons, and I was there. I'm intense frustration of like, I'm never going to get. Now, what the fuck is that about?
Yeah.
Why am I believing that thought while I'm watching myself doing it and it's getting done? And I sometimes feel on the way up the stairs. I'm never going to get to the top of the stairs. And I have this intense feeling of frustration. I'm like, there's only 14 steps, for fuck's sake. I get up every day. What am I doing? And the frustration comes from believing the thought while all the evidence is pointing to something getting done. I'm like, what is this? Oh my God. And I just, I have the feeling of frustration of believing the thought while there's no evidence whatsoever. It's like, what is that about? It's just, so somebody explain that to me. Except for, you can tell me I'm crazy if you want to. That'll solve the problem quickly. Yeah.
Sounds like a pattern from, the identities, these identities have patterns, programmed patterns, if you will. And it sounds like a programmed pattern that is being revealed that you're seeing. And you're just going to watch it until it burns itself out. It's just a programmed pattern. And then as it burns, that's all. No big.
I guess so. Hopefully it'll burn itself out. Yeah. So I thought it was it's kind of funny. It's a bit frustrating, but
it highlights something that's really relevant, and that is that we can hold two opposing views at the same time. We can do that. Yep. And part of the word problem comes up, but it's not a problem. Part of what's going on is that you believe one side of it more than the other.
Yeah, I seem to believe the negative side or the thought side rather than the reality side, which is disappointing.
Yeah, but both sides are just stories, aren't they? Even seeing it actually happening is just a story, even though it appears to be in the physical world, right? Because what's happening, right? That I'm achieving it, right? So again, it's about the future. I'm going to get it in there. I'm seeing myself getting it in there is a story about the future, right? But while you're at the same time, you hear this story that says it's going to take forever.
I guess so. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's
Those
awesome.
stories of the future. Yeah.
That's
that makes sense.
Also, Don, you're giving yourself the perfect metaphor. Everything is telling you there isn't a self, but you're denying that it isn't, and you're still saying there is.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Don, do you think maybe you're seeing that the feeling doesn't prove the truth of the fact or the truth of the thought? That the frustration doesn't prove that something isn't getting done?
Yeah, I could see that. I can see that. Yeah. It's just, but as I mean, I'm observing that, but just while I was doing those two activities earlier on, the feeling of it felt still more true than the observation of. I know, as Vince said, they're both stories, and that kind of frustrated me. The feeling of it still felt a little bit more true than the observation of what was actually happening or seemed to be happening, which was just.
But you're noticing it. Do you hear what you're saying?
Yeah.
You're noticing it. That's what we keep telling you in here is notice things. You start noticing it, then it will work itself out. But it's really good that you're noticing that. You never really shown that connection before.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was noticing. I have been noticing it. That's true. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, cool. The other thing I was doing, I was listening to all of you and I was trying to be in the present moment. I do often find that there's I guess I was listening to Angelo again during the week, but I often feel like there's these two present moments. There's the one where I'm in this middle of my story between the past and the future, and I'm trying to stay there and I don't like it. And I know I'm in a story and I'm pretending to be in the present moment. So I feel like I have to drop those stories and be with the experience of whatever is happening rather than pretending to be in the moment in a story. And I really seems like I have to make an effort to drop the thinking that's trying to keep me in a story about some, and I get this intense, sensations and fear and panic and all that shit goes through me when I'm telling myself to drop the stories of the past and future and just stay with the sensations and what I can see. And of course, the next question might be, who is doing all of that? I don't know. But anyway, I do some of that sometimes and I just sit with those sensations. And I was doing that during the last hour or so. And it's just the intensity of those sensations. It feels like they just don't want me to be here, kind of undistracted by stories. And I'm just trying to sit. And the thing, Jahira, she's gone, isn't she? Asked whatever question she asked about being inquisitive or something and deciding it wasn't happening to me. So I've been sitting with that for the last, well, today, but previously as well. But sometimes when I try and sit or meditate or inquire, there seems to be a lot of resistance to being here and not being distracted. And I'm sort of determined to come back and not be distracted. And there's a lot of really intense negative sensations, and I just try and sit with that. So that's what I've been doing for the last little while. I don't know. And then, of course, I ask myself, who's doing that and all the rest, but I'm not sure if I get anywhere. But I'm trying to just, because it feels like there's a, yeah. There was disconnects. I won't, well, I always say I won't go on. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. She does a non-duality coaching, and she has done lots and lots of the same kind of therapies as me, like internal family systems is one of the ones. And I was telling her I'd done a bunch of physical, TRE and craniosacral and stuff for a long time, for well, 6 or 8 months anyway, and didn't really seem to calm me down at all. And we were talking about calming down my nervous system. And she said, sort of from an IFS point of view, she said, there might be a part of you that doesn't want you to calm down. It doesn't feel safe if your body calms down. And it often feels to me there's been some kind of sabotaging going on of lots of therapies I've done. So I'm kind of looking for that as well a little bit sometimes, going, is there something that I can't see? You think the present moment is lovely and peaceful and nice, and wouldn't I just calm down and have a nice meditation? But it doesn't happen. So I just sometimes look and go, there seems to be real resistance for me sitting in the present. And I'm just trying to look for that without trying too hard, but also trying too hard. Anyway.
Yeah, I have similar just sitting, and I'll do it for a little while, but then it's the part, when she says the part of you, what I have is the thoughts that come. And the thoughts that come from me is, you're not being productive, you're wasting your life, you're supposed to blah, 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 blah. So it's the story that's trying to pull me. And it almost feels like an addiction. Like I gotta go get my fix. I gotta go get my fix. I can't just sit here. And it's the stories, it's the thoughts that are, so when you said that there's a part of me that there is no you, so there can be a part of you, but you can be having thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know what that part would mean in that context of there being no me. I don't know what, yeah. But and she knows there's no me as well, but just she was making it a point in that.
Yeah.
In that context. I was at a Byron Katie type workshop last weekend. Was it last weekend? I think so. Her daughter Roxanne was doing it here in Ireland. One of the things she said, which I kind of knew already, I guess, but she said something like, you won't be able to, or whatever way around, you use the passive voice, but anyway, you won't be able to drop a belief if your system believes your survival depends on it. If there's some historical reason that your survival depended on believing something or thinking something, then that won't be easy to drop until the survival connection is broken or seen through or something. That kind of makes a bit of sense to me. If there's some fear, then a belief will just keep going and going. If it feels it's
I think just dropping it can be a bypass. Sometimes dropping it's great. Sometimes dropping it's a bypass, because if there's a whole rubber band ball of thoughts that are keeping that survival in place, and we just keep trying to drop it. Some of them just don't unravel. It's more like an unraveling, and then it lets go, because it has to be seen through in order for it to let go of us.
Yeah.
It'll just drop away when we see through it. If we're trying to drop it, then we're trying to push it away and reject it. Sometimes, not like this is a black and sometimes you can just hear something, just drop it. But if it's sticky and then we're trying to drop it, now it's become a battle. Now it's a resistance. Now it's a push away, rather than, okay, this isn't just getting dropped. Let's go in here and unravel this ball of thoughts a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Part of me, I don't even know what it is after all these flipping years, what thing specifically it is that keeps me trapped. But one of the ones I was looking at last week was the feeling of wrongness, which people here will be familiar with, having listened to me before. But just comes from every direction at the same time. And it feels very aggressive and so on. So I have to kind of, yeah, be nice and friendly with it and so on. And I've been working on that a little bit, but
And be in the
it's,
moment with, be in the moment with
yeah.
it. Yeah, it'll, whatever the thought ball is that's keeping you uncomfortable is going to be happening in now.
Mm,
And explore it now rather than going in the mind and trying to figure out what it is. Well, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. Just when you're uncomfortable, explore in the now.
yeah.
That's the access. Otherwise, you're in your head.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I can tell the difference half the time, but anyway, yeah.
go
You
get
know,
it.
I
Bye.
somebody going? Is somebody-
I have to go. Bye.
You're going, okay.
Bye. Thank you.
You know, Dom, for the last few days, I was thinking about you, and it was about what you said, that you feel you can't be a parent to yourself, you know, to take care of this little Dawn. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, totally, yeah. Yeah.
That there is only this little Dawn.
Well, actually, I'll distinguish between quickly. I'll say that what I think is the case. I mean, this is 4 years of internal family systems therapy later. It's not something I came up with last week for the first time. It feels, and sometimes there seems to be a break in the system, but it seems like there's whoever little Don might be. I mean, this is, of course, there's no Don of any kind, is there? But anyway, if little Don is, say he's 4, he's 10 or something, then there's another version of him who's around the same age, or he's a bit more kind of managerial, he might be 15 or something. And but what I found doing that therapy was that there's just a bunch of inner children. Some of them manage the system and some of them are sort of exiled, traumatized parts. And there's getting, it sounds terrible, getting rid of all that, but what they say in that kind of therapy, unblending from all of those until self with the capital S results is a very laborious process in my case, and they're very clingy. You can sometimes do that, but it happens very, very seldom for me that there's this self left over, because there's so many parts determined to hold on to their role. And so what happened, if I was trying to heal parts in that methodology, they wouldn't trust me because they would know it was just another inner child trying to help them. And so, but recently I found that it possibly, you know, if I were more present, I feel I could do it now, possibly. But that's the way it was for quite a long time, that there was just a whole bunch of inner children of different kinds, and it wasn't what they expected to happen with IFS. They expected that I could unblend those and then there would be self left over, and they were kind of frustrated by that. Anyway, you might have an insight into it from, I'm just explaining in detail.
Oh. No, I related to it because I always get this feeling that there's no parent here, and yeah, when Vince or some other guide says that when you were a child, but now you're adult, you have enough maturity to deal with the situation. And I am like, do I really have this maturity? There is a doubt in what does it even mean, this heavy word, maturity. It's let's being a parent, being mature. It's also all of it is so heavy,
Mm.
Mm.
and it came to me exactly that maybe it's enough to be my older sister, not even much older,
Mm.
year older sister. It's and when I say to myself, there is this voice, I'm doing this wrong. I'm okay. It's okay. I will be with you. Yeah, I will, the older sister. I tried to help, and maybe we will do it wrong, but we will do it together.
And there is no
think that
wrong. There's no possible wrong. It's all just another place on the path, so to speak.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I have this feeling I'm still, yeah, a bit black and white about it maybe, but no, this is not non-duality stuff. I'm just talking about internal family systems and my experience of it. But there's a feeling, I don't know, I'd say a feeling or a sensation in my head that tells me that I'm identified as someone, as a child of some kind or some part of me.
Mm.
And being out of that identification is very unusual for me, and it feels totally different and clear and fresh and different.
Mm.
And don't feel afraid so much, and I don't feel all that weight of thought, and I don't feel like I'm perceiving through a story when I'm out of that. And I don't feel out of it now. And it happens very seldom, and I know the difference, I would
Mm.
say.
Mm.
And it sometimes happens with this non-duality thing. Sometimes the sort of present moment feels fresh enough, and I'm going, oh, here's a bit of space. And it's I don't know how to. Yeah, and they have a whole process for unblending. They say unblending all your inner child parts from you bit by bit, and then you get this experience of being, you know, the self with the capital S from in that therapeutic modality, as it were. I don't know why for you it's like this, Bianca. For me, I think it was because my dad didn't want me to kind of be a competitor to him. He wanted me to be small forever so that he could dominate me or something, and I had to stay small. So it felt like I had to do that to keep safe, I guess, and not grow up. But anyway, I'm still working on it, but it's an important piece for me, because I don't know, even when the last thing I said to Jenny before she left, she said something about not being in your head. I'm like, I'm in my head right now because I feel like I'm talking through a story. There's no way out of it from that for now. I can't see out of this. It's just where I'm at. And then sometimes it clears and I go, oh, space, I can feel it. I don't know how it happens. It's a weird and then somebody here might say, oh, you're always in the present. There's no, you know, it could be, that's pretty true as well, but it's strange. Anyway.
Don, would a way out of it be possibly to stop asking yourself questions?
I don't know why that would work.
Don, I'm wondering how much you feel in your body. Like how often you can or do sit with feelings.
I've been trying recently in the last like 6 months or so, feel like feeling sensations whenever more. I mean, this could just be a class of what we talked about a minute ago, that I'm just feeling something and I'm believing that feeling to be Just like I believed the feeling earlier on that I was frustrated that I wasn't getting the thing done, this now feels like a feeling of identification, which could be just bullshit. I just could be labeling it wrong. But anyway, maybe the sensations is, I've been trying to focus on that for 6 months or so. Yeah.
Don, one of the things that just came up for me was something that Paul alluded to earlier, and that is how feelings validate your thoughts. And it appears to me that you have a much stronger belief that feelings are true than you do thoughts.
You probably, yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. I don't know why that would be, but yeah.
Mm. So I mean, it's pretty common, but contemplate why do feelings have any more validity than thoughts, or let's put it another way. Why, if thoughts, okay. Why do we give feelings more credibility than we do thoughts? I'm not after an answer. It's just something to think. Yeah.
I'll think about it. Yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I will think about it. Yeah. My initial answer is just I feel confused already. But anyway, I will. Yeah, I have asked myself that before, and I'll keep doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an example. When you said I feel confused, are you actually feeling something that you call confusion, or is it are you referring to your mind? Where is the confusion? Is it in your thoughts?
It feels like a physical sensation in my head of kind of dizziness or blankness. Yeah.
Yeah. So feeling confused was accurate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I feel like less capable of figuring anything out or knowing whether something is true or not while that's the case. Whether that's true, but it feels like that.
How are you traveling, Soren?
Last 2.5 hours have been quite the experience. There's a lot of intellectualizing and like dichotomies of selflessness, selfishness, speaking, not speaking, the implications of not speaking and whatnot. Just things that came to mind, like something I held on to this for quite some time. Something Elad said at near the start, which really felt like it resonated with me. I was smirking uncontrollably with like having figured things out and whatnot. But for me, and obviously it was quite obvious. This is sort of like why I adjusted the camera. Because I sort of just want to express as much of myself as I can through the camera and my, like, the energy going through my hands and whatnot. There was something about the dynamic between Yvonne and Jenny, which was so cathartic. There's this honest, like, Yvonne was so vulnerable and honest and willing to admit things and willing to feel things. And there was this like precise vigilance, insightful guidance. And it's just sort of, I don't know, there was a lot that released, and because just some phrase that was said, something like the dualities merging, like how they were like coming together at opposite ends, despite how conflicting they are. And my mind was looking for words to describe the experience succinctly, and the best thing that it came up with was primordial interplay, just how like energetically everything was moving, and the way she like left it's like a complex image concept, but it was simply like the sunspot, like the snapping of like energy, like how quickly the dynamic shifted. And then there was insights. Oh yeah, something I guess I wanted to mention is like that was going through my mind at the same time is like there's an experience similar to this when I was playing yesterday. Every Saturday I like to spend a few hours playing chess with people in person. And in some ways it's so compelling because it's so honest, because people are full of shit with win, loss, gain, whatever. And then chess is just like what people make of it. All this to do with time and rating and whatnot. And it's just, it's when I sit down, there's like this life or death. There's like an honestness, willingness to identify as the pieces, and it's like, I'm going to die. What do I do here? And just like feeling how raw that is. It's quite paralyzing in some ways. And afterwards, there was just sort of like relating that at the time, or a few minutes ago, and then there was the ways of there's also the way Don was talking. There was like an honesty to it, despite how intellectual it is, and it's just the phrase in my life came to me, abuse of intuition. How early it came, and how it's like habitually been done, and how it's been learned. I've learned to do it because, oh, so smart, potential, whatnot, and whatnot, and it's like it's been co-opted by people around me, people pushing their failures onto what they see as like a hope or and whatnot, and all this repressed emotion and whatnot. So yeah, there's always like the anticipation of being called on, and quite a few times in the call there's this, what am I going to say? There's like this holding on to like, oh, how am I going to, what am I going to say? The fear of the sharing silence with people, or expectant silence. And there was like a lot of looking at the clock. And then ever since maybe like 45 minutes ago, there wasn't any of the clock looking. There wasn't any of the, what am I going to say? It was just sort of the phrase, like the physical process. It's all a physical process. There was like some stuff about emotions validating thoughts, which was very real for me. The analogy of a light switch came to mind. It's like the switch doesn't do anything. The thoughts don't do anything. Oh, but it's like, oh, you flip the switch and the light turns on. Oh, the switch does something. It's sort of like the thoughts does something in here. Oh, the thoughts do something. It's like that kind of parallel.
Hmm. I don't know what to do with that.
My question, Soren, would be when you said the switch analogy and you find that the switch does do something, so the thoughts are doing something. What are the thoughts doing?
This is, yeah, this is bringing me back to the things that I sort of came with at the start, which was this place of thoughts being everything. The like taking reality to be what's on the screen, taking reality to be possibilities on the screen and whatnot, because there were times where everything in the world was so fully, thoroughly rejected that it's like all that there was. And there's times I'm thinking it's like I'm referring to ingrained patterns, behaviors, traumas, and the sort of like the body reenacting. And there are times I'm thinking of a time a few months ago where it's so drawn into like a game, like a certain game for like a month or so, which is very like such thorough repression that I'm just like a character on a screen in a simulation for 10 hours straight. And just this feeling of walking outside and it's like nothing I'm seeing around me is real. I'm just in a simulation. And then sitting down, booting the computer, and then that's what's real. And it's just the dissonance is so because obviously it's not reality, but just such a intense inversion is very, very friction. Like there's like a lot of I'm like imagining like I don't know, like a rubber screen or something that's been stretched so far for a long time, and then you let go and then it sort of like keeps that shape for a little while without that thing being pulled. And the thing being pulled is like the games or whatnot, and the rubber is like the emotions, where it's just sort of pulled really strongly and just sort of like going further and further and further into thoughts, just to push all that down. And I guess there was a resonance, a strong resonance with Elad said 2 hours ago that I keep going back to, because it's like he mentioned like certain minds, like pattern recognition, whatnot. It's like my mind got really, really good at that. And so it's there's still this strong, I don't know how to put it, like distrust of emotion and trust with what's not real. Because here's a mind that got so good at dealing with what's not real and making up plans and possibilities and learning concepts and dealing with like science and math as like an anecdotal example is like not really, is like really came easily because like the hypothetical concepts and ideas and mental images and whatnot. And at the same time, there's such a strong separation and distance between the direct experience, what's being felt, what's being seen. I get the
So
feeling,
whatever, oh, go on, carry on.
there's also one thing that got mentioned. Mentioned exercises, and I don't know how Stacy's my guide, and I get the feeling that she has I'm giving her a hard time. But that's purely just my impression. I don't know what that is, how truthful that is, or whatnot. You were saying, James?
No, I was going to say everything you were saying gave me the impression that you feel your life is split into two halves or two parts, and the one part you feel is reality and one part you feel isn't reality. Was that what you were trying to say?
Yes. And I guess why I said all that is just so I guess it's a bunch of backgrounds and conditioning, because it's like my experience for a long time. So it's inevitably a part of, there's like that kind of stuff doesn't go away.
Okay, so my
making reality, yeah.
My question would be, because obviously none of us know what reality is or isn't, but if you've got the sensation that part of your life is real and part of your life isn't real, reality or unreal, what makes the difference between those two parts of your life? How do you know which is which?
My emotions is, I'm trying to keep it simple.
That's good.
The first thing came to mind was just how this feels, emotions.
Okay, so in that case, that would lead me to think: are your emotions at the moment making you think this is real or unreal? What's happening now?
No. I don't know what that says. It was just a no.
Okay. Is that your response? It's your response?
I can't even, it's just said no. So it's like, okay.
Okay. Well, you said no. I'll leave it there.
Soren, can y'all hear me?
Yes. I can hear you, Paul.
Do you, I was discussing this with Don, I've discussed it with other people before. Do you use sensations in the body, which you call feelings, and which you may label as frustration or anger, whatever, but they're sensations? Do you use what I'll call pleasant or unpleasant sensations in the body to prove the truth of a thought or a proposition? In other words, if it
Yes.
feels good, does that make it true? If it feels unpleasant, does that make it false? And I'm oversimplifying, but do you see what
I
I'm
don't
saying?
know. I don't know. There's like an immediate yes, and then there's a lot of energy. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of
The
uncomfortable. It's always an uncomfortable feeling when I say that to people, because the first thing that comes up for people is, can it be that simple that I'm using just a sensation to prove an ultimate truth or something? It always feels uncomfortable, but when you really look, and this is a good exercise to play around with sometimes when you're just sitting around on the porch and you're having a feeling about something, oh, that's really true, or oh, that's not true, to look into the body and see if the truth of the matter is objectively true or false, or if it's only true because of sensations in the body. Have you ever tried that?
there's a lot of things being confused together here.
It's okay. You've had a lot of insights sitting around here. I'll say that. That's what Vince said. I don't know what to do with that. I said, I don't know what to do with that. You had a lot of insights in here from a lot of conversations. It's really, it's really a good thing though. But anyway, just sometime, just make it light and easy. This is not that big a thing. Just kind of, next time you have that feeling, well, that's really true or that's really false, just kind of look at the body and see if am I proving the truth or falsity by a sensation in the body that has a label on it. And just look at it and see, because in other words, when you have the belief in the self, a lot of that is oriented towards feelings in the body. And intellectually, you may get that there's no self, but it's still, people say, well, it still feels like a self. So you might want to explore that relationship a little bit. Might help.
Yeah, there's a compulsion to feel. There is what is right. Someone called me intense. I keep coming back to this in conversations recently, but it feels so accurate.
Because you feel emotions strongly.
Yes.
Well, I don't think of that as a fault.
I think there is yeah. I feel like there's something double-edged.
Yeah, everything's double-edged. Michelangelo was called intense. You know, a lot of the great artists throughout history have been called intense, and the double edge is sometimes they were intensely depressed about things. You know, there's no one good emotional state. It's all just kind of a mixed up bag. It's the human experience. So I wouldn't worry about being called intense.
No,
I mean,
I took it as a gift. I didn't take it as a,
oh, good.
maybe, yeah, I took it as, I'm like, whoa, wow, he's right. Like that was the sort of orientation that I had when he said that. But the shock came when it's like that word never once entered my mind. And then it's just been ever since entering my mind over and over.
Oh, it's just showing up a lot. Yeah, well, when you start noticing something, you will start noticing more and more. It's like when I bought a Jeep, all of a sudden there's 10 million Jeeps on the road. You know, it's like I never saw Jeeps before. I'm like, why are there so many Jeeps out here? And my carpenter who rides with me all the time, he said, Paul, there's no more Jeeps on the road than there ever been. You're just looking at different ways, so don't worry about it. Yeah, but just, you know, it's a fun exercise. Just kind of look, you know, is there a feeling proving something that I just thought? And play around with it, see if it helps.
There's an exploration. I guess this may be actually, I think this is quite in tied with the intensity in ways I'm just realizing, where there's the intensity and then there's like the nothing left here. There's just like, because there's orientations towards koans and one pointedness and whatnot, but it's sort of like right here, right here, right here, right here. And then sort of like, oh, it's just fading, it just fades. And there's sort of like, if I ask the same question, maybe 3 to 4 days later, there's like, oh, there's just nothing left there. And
That's good.
there's, it's like, there's like the big paradox of human experience of like feeling right and is right. Like what we agree to be right and wrong philosophically, intellectually, calculatively, and then what we feel is right is wrong. And it's like the mind like struggles so much every time it tries to reconcile that.
Yeah,
It's
well, you know,
just,
we have this myth that the rational male or the rational man, I don't want to perpetuate it to just males, the rational male, but it's a surprising amount of emotion drives actions in the world. And just take as an example, somebody will do something stupid or crazy or whatever and come up with the craziest rationalization of why they did it. And anybody that hears it says, that's just absolutely nuts. I used to get this a lot when I was a lawyer. And I'm like, that, how hard did you have to work to make that story cover that stupid thing that you just did that everybody knows is a stupid thing? And it just shows you so many people will say, well, I'm very rational and logical about things, but then they don't behave that way. And so that's why I like to point out that feelings rule, even in non-duality. Feelings have a much bigger part in it, in turning, holding on to the self than people realize. That's why I try to get people to look at, you know, look at the feeling and does it prove or disprove a thought in any way? So something to look at. While you're doing, I mean, do what Stacy tells you. Stacy's a very good guide and the exercises are very helpful, but just something to play around with.
yeah, as far as that's concerned, there was a fantastic novel I read that really made this apparent. Very similar vein to what you said, where it's from this author that plays on perspective so incredibly well, where they constructed a series of events where the author let the reader come to the conclusion, this person's a fucking monster, this person's a maniac, this person like did all these heinous things, how could this happen? And then you sort of, it gets guided, like it's quite a ways through into the novel. There's like the playing of it out from that perspective, and then there's like the author's note at the very end of that that episode, that chapter, and it's just so, it just stuck with me, and it like really hit on what you said, which is like, it's really easy to,
Rationalize.
I guess this is somewhat validating me even sharing any of this, but it's so easy to like, as you said, rational, like put a label on it, but it's like, can you just for a moment feel what it was like to be them? Can you feel for a moment like, and that was just, whoa, it's incredible. And it's, I don't know, it's there's also another novel that I've like partially read from the same author, and it's like a very similar storytelling, where it's like everyone is this or that, and then there's like a lot of nuance, and then it's there's like quotes from this non-duality channel, but it's like at the end of this, it's like the end conclusion rather than along it, but it's like everything's ultimately innocent. So how can one blame or fault or be upset at something that's, you know, it's just, I'm glad you brought that up, that the crazy man that did something, like you have to construct, like, how did that even happen?
Yeah. Uh, people make cover stories that are just incredulous, but when what it boiled down to was just, that's what they wanted to do. That's what they felt like doing. You know, it was like an many people, instant gratification takes over, and then they make up a crazy excuse of why that made sense. And, you know, you can sit there and objectively and see that it doesn't, but they're really caught up in the story. And in these non-dual discussions, the idea of self is really just getting caught up in a story, and the interplay of that story, and the feelings that it's true, and it all points to the same thing in a way. Life outside non-duality and life inside non-duality have a lot of similarities. So, but you know, you're picking up a lot of insights. You're doing good. You're in LU, and you're in the right place.
Yeah, I hear all that now, and there's certain conclusions, but it's just a lot of struggle in between, honestly.
Yeah, well, Vince had 40 years at it. I had 35 years at it. So, I mean, you don't, that's not sad. And look, I'll tell you something. Our struggle was when it took 2 months to get a book, to get a copy of I Am That. You know, everything that it took me 30 years to just get in the mail, you can pull up on your phone nowadays. I mean, it's amazing. It's happening amazingly fast for people now with all the resources available. I mean, you got just what you have, resources available right now to you, was unthinkable back when he and I were chasing this thing around
There wasn't
haphazardly, more
nowhere
or
near,
less.
there was not even any internet.
Right, no internet, and I had to order a copy of I Am That from a bookstore in New York City. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm in the Bible Belt of the South. You're not going to find anything like that down here. So, I mean, you're in the right place. You got all the resources available. I feel pretty good. You're going to get it. I mean, you already are it. You just have doubts.
Yeah, I agree. And just as I'm about to pull the plug, Ramiz, you turn your camera on.
I have a question.
Yes.
To know something, or to even communicate, if I'm not taking reference from sensations and thoughts, what is there to communicate? How to know anything?
And few places.
But right now, it feels like I'm in an online meeting. I'm in my bed and I'm in an online meeting. So it's maybe it's a story, but it feels more accurate than having a shower. Like I'm not eating right now.
My knee-jerk reaction to that question is there is no reference. I sort of hesitated because there's this there's like a hesitation of speaking and opposing and some, in one sense, imposing a perspective, but there is no reference. It just sort of happens. I don't know. It's like,
Is it true to say that something is more accurate or more truthful than something else?
I feel doubt and distrust there, like skepticism. There's like a need to know. There's like a reason. There's a need to know why you know, a need to know the knowing, as opposed to just trusting the knowing. That could be truthful, not truthful, right, wrong, and I don't know. How does that feel for you? I should ask that.
I feel like it's all speculation. Like maybe I'm just feeling doubt that I might be wrong, and I'm scared of that. So I want to be sure to be right about something. And maybe it's just a reasonable question, like how to know something to communicate it. Because if I have doubt, like what I'm feeling is, for example, fear, then it feels insincere to say that what I'm feeling is something else or not fear. Like if my first initial reaction to the sensation is fear, I'm being questioned about how do I know that? Then I don't know. There is a sensation here. That's all I can say.
I blanked a bit. Cause I feel I'm in a lot of the same places as you are with the doubts. I just sort of noticed that it's like you and I were the only ones like in the call. It's like everyone else left. There's like things going on and it's getting late and whatnot. This is sort of doubts. This is fears. This is stuff. I notice this a lot with talking with people. This is like the hesitation with sort of helping others or whatever you call that, is that it's like I keep being pulled into my own stuff.
Okay, let's wind up for the day, eh?
Thank you, Vince. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Thank you for hosting this, Vince.
Oh,
Bye.
I wanted to say one more thing to Don.
Yes.
Because I have this system of inner children and teenagers, and in your case, it was interesting that you said that all these children do not trust each other. But I wanted to ask, is a part in the system, this Don who just does things, who goes upstairs, who does the cooking. It seems that he seems to me like a quiet part.
Possibly. I don't know what to say. I mean, and presumably in reality, there's no dawn anyway. There's just doing of stuff happening, but
Yeah.
there's various seeming identities going on and confusion in between them. So I'm not clear about it yet. But I guess what I was saying was during the process of the therapy stuff, that the idea is you can apparently heal and release various parts, and that's what they do. They do that week by week in the therapy, whereas mine would release or heal, or they would release and they'd come back. And one of the explanations given was that they didn't trust my inner system to be kind of whatever, I don't know, something like that. So I'm still not 100% sure, but yeah, it's a weird, but I did have a few experiences here and there where there was this unblending thing that they managed to help me do and help the parts sort of, yeah, unblend is it's a funny thing. You can just feel the identification kind of coming out of you or something, and they'd sit over on the side in a waiting room. And after a few of them had gone, you'd just feel properly present and clear. and properly self with a capital S. And actually, I won't go on, but my friend I was talking to yesterday, because she went through a lot of that, and that was one of the things that she did, like I did, and one or two other things as well. But that's one of the things she did for a number of years. And she said, like, the first time she heard Rupert Spira, she understood exactly what he meant immediately, because she'd done this so many times that the self with the capital S was really clear to her. So when he started talking about whatever he talks about, non-duality, she was like, yeah, of course. Because the unblending had been done so many times. But anyway, I don't know the answer really yet. Just, it's still a bit of a mystery to me, but we can talk about it again the next time and see, because it's still of interest. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Vince.
Everyone
No
go.
worries. No worries. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Vince. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone.